Hi, my name is Megan Maloney, and today I'm going to be talking about New Zealand and how climate change affects this country. So, a quick overview of the presentation. It will include how New Zealand is affected by climate change in the past and how it is currently still being affected. New Zealand's access to clean water, the media landscape on climate change in New Zealand, perceptions of climate change among the citizens of New Zealand, adaptation and mitigation strategies that have been proposed, and how understanding basic biology and ecology concepts can contribute to understanding climate change. So the top three concerns brought about by climate change in New Zealand are air pollution, water quality, and changes in weather patterns. So this little picture on the left definitely helped me figure out what these top three concerns were. So 69% of citizens said they have an issue with changes in the weather patterns. 49% of citizens said that there is an issue with air pollution, and 80% said that there is an issue with the state of rivers, lakes, streams, wetlands, and aquatic life in New Zealand. So to start off with air pollution, two-thirds of the population live in areas with high amounts of pollution. So as of 2015, burning wood and coal is the largest single human-made source of PM10, which stands for particles of matter under 10 microliters. Wood and coal burning is responsible for about 25% of air pollution, but people use wood and coal to heat their homes, to use equipment, so it has been difficult to cut back on this. Also, vehicle emissions are responsible for placing nitrogen oxides in the air and are accountable for about 39% of the air pollution in New Zealand. The figure on the right was data taken in 2016, which says that 1,300 premature deaths, several cardiac and respiratory hospitalizations, and 1.49 restricted activity days were all because of air pollution problems. So the water quality in New Zealand is not all as good as it seems to be. I ran across a lot of tourism websites and looked through the images, and the waters were crystal clear. I was like, wow, their water quality is great. But then when I did some digging and did some more research, that is definitely not the case. So the Environment Ministry of New Zealand claimed that 60% of bodies of water are unfit for activity, such as swimming, fishing, and boating. In 2019, 82% of New Zealand citizens are very concerned about water pollution and how it will affect their lives. They do have access to clean water, but not everyone has the best access to clean water. So in my research, I saw that urban rivers and lowland waterways have the highest amounts of pollution, which explains why the tourism pictures had crystal clear water. They didn't show the polluted bodies of water. Half of New Zealand's lakes are irreversibly damaged from pollution. And so the graph on the right was an assessment of 10 years of water quality. And so there on the bottom there are different components that are found in bodies of water. And the more red bar they have, those qualities are degrading, but the more green they have, those qualities are going up. So the ammonia in the middle is going up and the clarity of the water is going up, but the E. coli is getting worse, and so is the TN. Also, the New Zealand citizens are concerned with changes in weather patterns. So the increased CO2 levels cause more severe droughts and floods throughout the country and increased extreme precipitation. Another thing I found when I was doing research was that projected in 2050, the northern part of New Zealand will experience increased extreme flooding, and the southern part of New Zealand will experience more increased drought, which is crazy. But considering their location on the planet, they might experience those different extremities. And so all of this, the increased extreme precipitation can lead to ocean acidification, heightened wind speeds, and rising sea levels, which then in turn create more extreme tropical storms. And New Zealand is already experiencing some of these impacts, but not as extreme as they will in the future if they don't decrease carbon emissions. So the perception and the media. The IGA New Zealand conducted a survey of 1,000 people all over the country, and 790 people said they were very concerned about climate change. So people are aware of climate change and are perceiving the risks of it. The media coverage is good on the effects of climate change and the policy that are being proposed by the government. So several media websites from New Zealand frequently post stories and updates about climate change and ways to adapt and to mitigate. So the media does do an excellent job of aligning their messages with the IPCC standards, which is super important to gain the trust of the public and for them to realize that yes, they do need to pay attention and yes, this is important. As far as adaptation and mitigation, New Zealand is definitely trying. So in 2019, they signed a climate change response amendment bill and also proposed a Zero Carbon Act, which sets framework for carbon budgeting. They also do have a long-term goal with this bill and the act. Their long-term goal is to have net zero emissions on all GHG emissions, excluding methane, from agriculture and waste sectors. So also they were involved in the Paris Climate Agreement signed in 2016 and the Kyoto Protocol, which was signed in 2002, and they did meet their Kyoto Protocol guidelines by decreasing their emissions to the level of emissions in the 1990s. But the climate tracker indicates that over here they have an insufficient rating of lowering emissions by 30% by 2030 that was included in the Paris Agreement. This insufficient rating is due to the implementation issues from the government. They are not implementing these policies. Although they are proposing them, which is a step in the right direction, implementation is a key part of this process. So one of the proposed things they have is they set in place an emissions trading scheme that will slowly tax carbon so manufacturers will slow down on using it and find another resource. As a biology major, and I've just taken an ecology course last semester, I now have realized that understanding simple ecology concepts such as eutrophication and water composition is definitely essential to understanding how water supply is affected by pollution. So eutrophication is the over-enrichment of minerals and nutrients in a body of water. So all that means is plant life is surging because of more nutrients from the nitrogen and phosphorus, but animal life is decreasing drastically. So without that animal life, you're losing a big part of your food chain, which in turn creates chaos in the animal and plant world. Also, by understanding concepts of biology and human health, it is essential. They definitely help me understand how humans are affected by pollutants such as carbon and nitrogen that are found in the air. So they lead a lot to respiratory and cardiac illness, which is not good for human health at all. So overall, studying and understanding climate change becomes more difficult without knowing the basics of science that help with learning about climate change. A lot of people are intimidated by hard science, which I definitely can agree, but it definitely helps make those connections to social and political aspects of climate change. So the key takeaways of this presentation are the three major concerns brought about by climate change, which are air pollution, water quality, and changes in weather trends. In New Zealand, climate change has a decent media exposure, and citizens are aware and perceive the risks of climate change. And the government has created amendments and policies, but not enough implementation of those policies is occurring. If that can change, then New Zealand is on the right path to stopping climate change. Thank you.